The moment a board-certified forensic document examiner, the exact kind of specialist who testifies in federal fraud trials, who authenticates handwritten wills in probate court, who identifies ransom note authors for the FBI, looked at the 14 words on a rose card that Claressa Shields posted to millions of followers and said the signature was not written by the man whose name is on it, the entire Papoose narrative did not just crack. It shattered. Because what everybody has been arguing about for the last 2 months was Papa good husband, was Remy Ma right, is Claressa being played, is this real love or a rebound arrangement? Every single one of those debates has been operating on top of a false floor. The debate assumed the artifacts were real. The debate assumed that when a card said love always, Papoose, the hand that held the pen was Papoose. And the moment a forensic expert with courtroom credentials looked at 3 specific, measurable, verifiable anomalies on that card and said the person who wrote this note is almost certainly not the person whose name is on it, the entire architecture of this relationship's public performance collapsed into something none of us have language for yet. And the reason you have not heard the full story anywhere else is because everybody in this comment section, everybody on the shade room, everybody quote tweeting the roses picture, has been watching the wrong person. The story is not about Papoose. The story is about who is holding the pen when Papoose's name goes on paper. And when I walk you through the ascender heights, the closure of the letter A, and the signature security break that has been present in every documented Papoose autograph for 20 years and is missing from that card, you are going to understand why the most dissected relationship in hip-hop and combat sports right now has a load-bearing lie sitting right at the center of it. And I promise you, when we get to the third theory, the one nobody is talking about, the one that involves an entire industry of ghost-written intimacy, you are going to look at every celebrity Valentine's Day post you have ever liked on Instagram completely differently. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me set the table properly, because if you do not understand what forensic document examination actually is, you are going to walk out of this video thinking this is some TikTok graphology nonsense. And that is not what we are dealing with here. Forensic handwriting analysis is not the parlor trick where somebody looks at your looping L's and tells you are an extrovert. It is a rigorous scientific discipline used in federal courtrooms, used in probate battles worth hundreds of millions of dollars, used in the authentication of the Hitler diaries and the exposure of the Mormon salamander letter forgeries. The core principle is simple. Your handwriting is not a style. Your handwriting is a motor neural fingerprint. It is a pattern burned into your nervous system through tens of thousands of repetitions, and it encodes not just shape but velocity, pressure, rhythm, and the tiny unconscious decisions your hand makes without ever consulting your conscious brain. You do not decide to cross your T at a specific height. You do not decide to close your O with a specific curve. Those decisions were made for you a long time ago, and they are extraordinarily stable across your entire lifespan. Forgers can copy shape. Forgers cannot copy the invisible dynamics beneath the shape. That is why this discipline is one of the most reliable authentication tools in existence. And that is what was just applied to a small handwritten card tucked into a bouquet of roses that Claressa Shields, the greatest woman boxer alive, the GWOT, the pound-for-pound queen of the sport, posted to her social media feed with a caption crediting the flowers to her partner Papoose. The card read 14 words. To the love of my life from the love of your life. Thanks for being you. Love always, Papoose. And within hours, the internet's comment sections were already whispering the sentence that would become the thesis of 1,000 posts. Pap ain't by that. But whispering is not evidence. Whispering is not forensic. And what you are about to see is what happens when whispering meets a document examiner with 2 decades of Papoose exemplars to compare against. Because Papoose is not some private citizen with no paper trail. This is a man who has been signing autographs for 20 years, whose handwritten lyric sheets from his reality television era are documented and archived, whose signed memorabilia sits in the collections of fans across the country with certificates of authenticity attached. There is an extensive, well-documented, forensically usable record of what Papoose's actual handwriting looks like. And when you cross-reference that record against the 14 words on that card, 3 specific anomalies emerge. Not 1, not 2. 3. And each one on its own would be a yellow flag. Together, they are a 5-alarm fire. So, let me walk you through them. Because the debate about Papoose and Claressa Shields is about to permanently change the moment you understand what a document examiner just saw. Anomaly number 1 is the letter A. In the question document, which is the note on the rose card, the letter A is closed at the top with a slight rightward lean. In Papoose's known exemplars, pulled from at least 6 separate documented samples across autographs, lyric sheets, and signed items, the letter A is open at the top with a leftward lean. And I want to be very precise here, because this is where amateur graphologists fall apart and forensic examiners do their real work. The open versus closed top of a letter A is not a stylistic choice. It is a structural formation pattern determined by the motor pathway in the writer's nervous system. You do not switch from open to closed A's because you are writing on a different day with a different pen. You do not switch because you're in a hurry or in a good mood. The formation pattern is the formation pattern, and it stays consistent for decades. Papoose's A is open. The card's A is closed. That is not variance. That is a different hand. Anomaly number 2 is the ascender height, and if you have never thought about ascenders before, you're about to. Ascenders are the vertical strokes on letters like L, K, and T that rise above the body of the lowercase letters. In forensic document work, the ratio of ascender height to X height is one of the most stable metrics you can measure because it is set by muscle memory, not by conscious decision. Papoose's ascenders, across every documented sample, are exaggerated. They tower. His L's reach. His T's stretch. They run roughly 2.5 times the X height of his lowercase letters. This is a man who writes tall. The note on the card does not exhibit this pattern at all. The ascenders on the card are proportional, compressed, restrained, ordinary. That is a motor pattern discrepancy of the highest order. It does not disappear because someone is writing on a small card. It does not disappear because they are using a marker instead of a pen. That ratio is who they are as a writer. And it is missing. And then we get to anomaly number 3, which is the one that closes the case for anybody with a working knowledge of signature dynamics. The signature on the rose card reads Papoose in a flowing, connected, uninterrupted script. Smooth. Fluid. One motion. And that is exactly the problem. Because Papoose's actual signature, executed thousands of times across 2 decades of public appearances, contains a specific, angular break between the P and the O. A visible interruption in the stroke. And there is a technical reason for that break, which anyone who studies signatures and high-volume signers already knows. It is called a signature security habit. Anybody who signs their name thousands of times, athletes, musicians, politicians, anybody who does autograph sessions, develops an unconscious protective mechanism where the hand breaks the stroke at a specific point to prevent the signature from becoming a single continuous line that could be trivially forged. The more you sign, the more entrenched the break becomes. It is not decorative. It is defensive. And Papoose has been signing for 20 years. That break is in every documented signature I have seen referenced. And it is completely absent from the note on that card. The signature flows without interruption, without a security pause, without the angular hesitation that defines the man's actual autograph. It looks like somebody trying to write the word Papoose. It does not look like somebody who has written it 10,000 times. 3 anomalies. 3 independent measurements. 3 arrows all pointing in the same direction. And the direction is this. The person who wrote that card is not the person whose name is on it. And oh, do I have more for you? Because if you think the anomalies are where the story ends, you are still standing in the shallow end of this pool. The Papoose defenders in the comments right now are already typing furiously about how handwriting varies, how a card is different from a poster, how everybody has an off day. And I want you to hold that thought, because I am about to show you exactly why every one of those defenses collapses the second you look at what the forensic literature actually says about motor stability. But before I get there, I need you to understand the 3 competing theories about what actually happened with that card, because each one has completely different implications for Papoose, for Claressa, and for the entire manufactured intimacy economy that powers celebrity social media. And the 3rd theory is the one that is going to change how you look at every celebrity love post you scroll past for the rest of the year. Theory 1 is the self-author theory. Under this reading, Claressa Shields wrote the note herself. She purchased the flowers. She wrote the card. She attempted to reproduce Papoose's handwriting from memory or from a visual reference. And she posted the result to her feed, attributing the entire gesture to him. If this is what happened, the 3 anomalies are precisely what you would expect. The closed A with the rightward lean is Claressa's own motor pattern bleeding through her attempt to imitate. The compressed ascenders are her natural writing proportions overriding her attempt to replicate his tall, dramatic strokes. The missing signature security break is the telltale failure of the non-forger. A person who has not signed Papoose 10,000 times does not have the security break encoded in their motor cortex, so when they write the word, they write it as a word, not as a signature. And the card, in every measurable way, matches what you would expect from somebody writing Papoose for the first or second time in their life. This is not a crime. Nobody is going to jail over a rose card. But if this is what happened, it is something the public is going to find deeply uncomfortable because it is the definition of self-mythology. It is a woman under relentless public scrutiny about the authenticity of her relationship taking authorship of the narrative by producing her own evidence of the love she wants the world to see. She stages the flowers. She writes the note. She photographs the artifact. She posts. The comments roll in. The gossip accounts amplify. The story rewrites itself, one manufactured gesture at a time. And Papoose's love becomes documented because his name is on the card, whether or not his hand ever touched it. Theory 2 is the proxy theory, and this one is arguably even more interesting than the self-author theory because it points at something enormous about the industry itself. Under the proxy theory, the note was written by neither Papoose nor Claressa. It was written by a third party, an assistant, a florist, a delivery person, a publicist, somebody in the couple's staff apparatus who was tasked with preparing the flower delivery and, following standard florist protocol, wrote a handwritten card as a professional courtesy using their own script. And here is where it gets genuinely fascinating, because if you talk to anybody who has ever worked in the celebrity gift management ecosystem, they will tell you that a shocking percentage of the handwritten notes attached to high-profile celebrity gifts are not written by the celebrities themselves. Florists write them. Personal assistants write them. Publicists write them. It is standard practice. The gesture is real, in the sense that the celebrity ordered the flowers and approved the sentiment. The handwriting is not real. It is delegated. And the entire industry operates on the quiet understanding that the gap between the name on the card and the hand that wrote it is a feature of the business, not a bug. Under this theory, Papoose may not even know the note exists. He may have told an assistant, send Claressa flowers, make it romantic. The assistant did what assistants do. And now a document examiner is analyzing the ascender heights of a card that Papoose has never seen. And then there is Theory 3, the defense reading. Under Theory 3, the note is authentic. Papoose wrote it himself, and the anomalies exist because handwriting is variable and he was writing on a small surface with a different pen in a different context. It is possible. It is the counterfactual branch that any rigorous analysis has to leave on the table. But here is the problem with it, and I want you to hear this clearly, because this is where the motor stability literature comes in and closes the door on this defense with a weight most people do not realize is there. The height ratio between ascenders and X height does not shift because you are writing on a card instead of a poster. The top closure of a letter A does not flip because you changed pens. And the signature security break, once encoded in a high-volume signer's motor cortex, does not vanish because you are writing in a casual context. Its absence is not explained by context. Its absence is explained by a different writer. And the burden of counter-evidence, if you want to defend Theory 3, is simple. One video. One post. One live stream where Papoose picks up a pen and writes his name, and the internet's amateur graphology squad either stands corrected or stands validated. That evidence has not been offered. And in the court of public opinion, the silence is deafening. But here is where we have to stop looking at the card and start looking at the machine, because if all we do is argue about ascender heights, we are missing the actual story. And the actual story is not about Papoose. It is about the entire architecture of manufactured intimacy that powers celebrity social media in this decade. Because the note does not exist in a vacuum. The note exists in the middle of the most public, most volatile, most emotionally invested relationship transition in recent hip-hop memory. For nearly 2 decades, Papoose was the gold standard of hip-hop husbandry. He loved Remy Ma loudly. He loved her consistently. He loved her publicly. He waited for her through a prison sentence, championed her career, ghost-wrote and co-wrote bars for her by his own reported admission, and built an image, the loyal, unshakable, devoted partner. That was as load-bearing to his brand as his actual catalog. Then that marriage collapsed. Infidelity allegations surfaced. Divorce filings became public record. And Claressa Shields, the greatest woman boxer of her generation, entered the frame. And suddenly the same playbook, the flowers, the notes, the Valentine's Day skywriting, the public declarations, the anniversary cards, was being run for a new audience. The exact same architecture of public devotion, being staged for the exact same cameras, using the exact same visual grammar, with a different woman standing next to him. And the internet, having watched Papoose perform this routine with Remy Ma for the better part of 2 decades, was primed. Every gesture was going to be measured. Every artifact was going to be scrutinized. And the moment a forensic examiner said the note is not in his hand, every card, every autograph, every handwritten lyric, every past artifact attributed to Papoose became a suspect document. The internet has been given a forensic baseline. And the internet does not forget. But the deeper story is not about Papoose specifically. The deeper story is about an industry that has been operating on this delegation model for decades and has never been called on it. Because in the celebrity gift economy, the sentiment is genuine and the handwriting rarely is. Florists deliver notes signed by celebrities every day. Publicists write birthday cards signed by their clients. Assistants sign autograph card responses in bulk. The system is built on the assumption that the fan on the receiving end will never subject the artifact to forensic scrutiny. And in the age of high-resolution smartphone cameras and forensic experts who will speak to journalists, that assumption is finally starting to break. And Papoose just happened to be the celebrity standing under the spotlight when the assumption cracked. There is a second systemic layer here, which is the streaming economy and the incentive structure that pushes celebrity couples to perform their love visibly, constantly, and photogenically. Every rose bouquet posted to Instagram is a piece of content. Every card is a piece of content. Every gesture is designed to be photographed, screenshotted, and disseminated. The relationship is not a private thing that happens to be occasionally documented. The relationship is a content channel with 2 hosts, and the artifacts are the deliverables. That is why the artifacts have to keep coming. That is why the gestures have to keep being staged. Because the moment the content stops, the followers assume the relationship stopped. And in a market where followers translate to endorsement deals, appearance fees, and every downstream revenue stream a modern celebrity depends on, the incentive to keep manufacturing artifacts is enormous. And when the celebrity does not have time to manufacture them personally, the apparatus does it for them. And then there is the third systemic layer, which is what I would call the hip-hop authenticity paradox, and this one specifically applies to Papoose. Hip-hop is a genre whose entire brand is built on realness. Keeping it real. Not being a fraud. Not being a fake. Not being an industry plant. Papoose's entire career was built on the image of a real one. A pen. A grinder. A loyal husband. A man of his word. And the moment a document examiner suggests his word is not even in his own handwriting, the paradox becomes unbearable. Because if the note is not real, and the man's brand is realness, then the entire brand is now a document in question. And that is a much bigger crisis than the flowers. And here is the truth bomb that everything in this video has been building toward, and I need you to sit with it, because it is bigger than Papoose, and it is bigger than Claressa, and it is bigger than any one relationship. What the rose card actually reveals, when you strip away the personalities and look at the mechanism underneath, is that the entire visible landscape of celebrity romance in 2026 is quite possibly a ghost-written product. Not partially. Not occasionally. Systematically. The notes are not written by the celebrities. The captions are drafted by publicists. The photographs are staged by content managers. The timing of the posts is coordinated with press releases. The comments underneath are seeded by fan engagement teams that specific management companies retain for this purpose. And the entire performance is dressed up as spontaneous private love that just happens to be shared with 100 million people because the couple is so overwhelmed with joy they cannot help themselves. That is not a real emotion having a public moment. That is a manufacturing pipeline producing an artifact. And the reason the Papoose card matters, the reason the Ascender Heights and the Closed A and the missing signature security break matter, is not because they prove Papoose does not love Claressa. Forensic handwriting analysis cannot measure love. What they prove is that the artifacts we have been consuming as evidence of that love are structurally unreliable. Every celebrity handwritten note you have ever seen on Instagram is now, based on this precedent, a potentially outsourced document. Every teary emotional card. Every anniversary letter. Every birthday message photographed and posted with a heart emoji. All of them just became evidence in a case that has not been publicly filed yet, which is the case against manufactured intimacy as a business model. And here is the part that I know is going to make some of you angry, because it is the part that everybody wants to look away from. The reason this scheme works, the reason the celebrities keep doing it, is because we keep validating it. We like the posts. We share the roses. We comment on how sweet the note is. We reward the manufactured artifact with the exact currency the artifact was designed to earn. And every like, every share, every on the comments is a data point telling the apparatus that the strategy is working and to produce more. We are not the audience. We are the market. And the artifacts are the product. And Papoose's rose card is not an outlier. It is a specimen. Allegedly. Reportedly. Based on the forensic anomalies as reported by the analysis in circulation. But specimen it is. And if a single forensic examiner can take 14 words and expose the mechanism, imagine what a broader audit of celebrity handwritten social media artifacts would reveal. That audit is coming. Because the tools now exist, the smartphone cameras are high resolution enough, and the appetite for accountability is officially there. And Papoose, who I want to be very clear I have no personal animus toward, just happened to be the first name to end up under the microscope. He will not be the last. But here is where the story turns, and I want to bring us back to the person in this whole situation who is actually still winning, and that is Claressa Shields. Because whatever happens with the note, whatever happens with the theories, whatever happens with the forensics, Claressa Shields is still the greatest woman boxer alive. She is still the pound-for-pound queen of the sport. She is still the fighter who has beaten every credible opponent in her weight class and has done it with a discipline, a focus, and a work ethic that would embarrass most of the men in her division. She did not need a rose card to be great. She was great before the flowers. She will be great after them. And the reason her name is anywhere near this forensic controversy is not because of anything she did in the ring. It is because of what happened in a relationship transition that placed her, fairly or unfairly, in the crosshairs of an internet that was already primed to distrust the entire situation. And I have to say this because it needs to be said. If the self-author theory is correct, if Claressa did write that note, the sympathetic reading is that she was doing what athletes are constantly forced to do when they are dating public figures. She was managing a narrative she did not create, in an ecosystem that punishes women more than men for the same public gestures, using the only tools available to her. And whatever your judgment of that is, the person who executes every job in the ring to 100%, who trains harder than her opponents, who wins with the kind of consistency that would make champions in any other sport, is not diminished by the question of who wrote a card. She rises above the card. She was always going to. And the one person in this entire story who is unfazed, who is still executing, who is still doing the work whether the internet is watching or not, is Claressa. One person in this situation is arguing with forensic examiners on Twitter. The other one is in the gym. Guess which one is going to be standing when the dust settles? If you have been with me this whole time, you already know the answer. The right person is still winning. The evidence is what the evidence is. And the truth, as it always does, is going to sort itself out. And here is why this is only the start. Because two things are coming down the pipeline that are going to keep this story unavoidable. The first is that Papoose's camp is now under enormous pressure to release a real-time counter-exemplar. One video of him writing his name on camera. One live stream where the pen moves in real time. And I am telling you right now, whether that video appears or does not appear in the next 2 weeks is going to be a defining moment. If it appears and the Ascender's tower and the A opens and the signature break is present, the note theory collapses and the internet moves on. If it does not appear, or if it appears and the anomalies are still there, we are in an entirely new phase of this saga. The second thing coming is that Remy Ma has been unusually quiet through this entire situation, and there is a very specific reason for that quiet, which we are going to break down in the next video. Because there is a diss track timeline that lines up with the rose card controversy in a way that nobody in the comments is currently talking about, and when you see the dates side by side, you are going to understand that Remy Ma may have already told us exactly what was going on months before the forensic expert weighed in. That video is going to break down that timeline second by second, lyric by lyric, and I am telling you, when the diss track lyrics line up with the forensic conclusions the way they do, the whole thing goes from a rose card controversy to a full documented pattern. If you want to see that breakdown, if you want to understand why the diss track that everybody dismissed as a bitter X spiraling out was actually a scouting report on exactly what a document examiner would find months later, the video on your screen right now is where that story lives. Click it. You are not going to believe what she said. And if you have made it this far, you're the real ones. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. And I will see you in the next one.